Hi, I'm Pam, and this is my monthly update video letting you know everything that I was up to in the month of August. Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a good end of the summer, even though it doesn't really feel like the end of summer here. It's been incredibly hot in Toronto this week so far, and I think that's going to continue at least until tomorrow. But August was a good month. There were a few cool things going on. You might remember in my last video I mentioned, I put a community post, the Poly Media Network, which is what Point and Drink Adventure is on, did a charity stream for the Bit by Bit Foundation. They raise money to give consoles and video games and accessible controllers to children's hospitals so kids have something to occupy themselves when they're in for treatment. And we raised $4,652 for them in our 24-hour charity stream, which was a lot of fun. Thank you to anyone who watched or donated. It was very much appreciated. I played Hollow Knight Steel Soul Run, which went almost the full 2 hours that I had until I died on my way to the Mantis Lords. I knew I was going to die at the Mantis Lords. I wasn't expecting to die on my way there, but that's what happened. There have been a couple new episodes of Point and Drink Adventure. There was the live episode we did during the charity stream where we talked about French Malbec. And then a few weeks before that, there was an episode where we talked about various hard ciders. So if either of those seem interesting, also obviously talked about lots of movies and games as well, but check those out on the Point and Drink Adventure channel. And the last update is that I went to Retro World Expo again this year. That takes place in Hartford, Connecticut. I think it's the convention I've been to most at this point. Maybe that or MagFest, I'm not sure. But it was a really good time. I always have a good time there. Spent Friday night sort of catching up with people I hadn't seen in a long time, generally only get to see at Retro World Expo, which was a lot of fun. The show was good. There was an arcade that was all on free play that I got to play some games on there, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I somehow did not buy a single thing on the vendor floor. I was looking for 2 PlayStation games. I was looking for Incredible Crisis and Board Game Top Shop, and I couldn't find those anywhere. I thought maybe I'd buy some jewelry or t-shirt. I couldn't find any jewelry, and I didn't see any t-shirts I wanted. So I got away from there without spending any money at the actual convention, which was kind of nice. I don't really need anything anyway. But yeah, it was a great time. Got to hang out with some great people, and yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention, I got to play Press Your Luck again, which I did last year. I had a heartbreaking defeat at the final moment where I whammied out of the game. This year, I played again with Mike Levy from the Dude You Haven't Played That Game channel, as well as Michelle, and I won this year, which is amazing. I love game shows, and I'm always really excited to play, and Big Bucks Entertainment, the people who put it on, do such a fantastic job with it, so I'm always excited to play. And I'm glad I finally won. So I do actually have a pickup this month. Not from Retro World, obviously, as I just said, but I have a new vinyl, which is actually a gift from Michelle. If you watched the last couple episodes of the podcast, you'll see that she got the Hymn of the Crystals / Tales of the Spoony Bard from the Spoony Bard, which is Final Fantasy IV, selections from that all orchestrated. And she ended up with 2 copies of it, so she gave one of them to me, which was very nice. Final Fantasy IV has some great music. I find that most of the music that I thought I loved from Final Fantasy VII started out in Final Fantasy IV and just got tweaked a little bit. It's a sort of tricolor, kind of Italian-looking vinyl, but very nice and really great soundtrack and music, and that's all the pickups. So I have a lot of games to talk about from this past month. First, I'm going to talk about the one thing that I retired, which is the last case of Benedict Fox. This was a Metroidvania that I was really looking forward to. It was sort of Lovecraft inspired, which what isn't this year? But it was sort of had more adventure-y puzzle elements to it than usual. And though the presentation was very good and the world seemed interesting, it just didn't feel nice to play. Like, the platforming felt kind of floaty, the combat felt a little unresponsive in terms of your parries or your blocks and attacking enemies. It was kind of hard to know what enemies were going to do at any one point, and it just unfortunately didn't feel good in a controller in my hand sense of playing. So I got through a couple bosses because I wanted to give it a decent shot, but I just didn't really end up liking it. So I did decide to finally retire that one. Now on to the games that I actually finished. The first one of our Wednesday co-op games that we've been playing for a few nights, was Trine 4. Trine is a puzzle platforming series. I think the 5th one just got announced, where there's 3 characters to play. There's an archer, there's a mage, and there's a warrior soldier. And you could play it with 4 players, which I was kind of surprised by. I always thought it was like a 3-player co-op game, but you can play with up to 4, and each of you can switch between the characters at will. So like, the archer can swing from ropes, the soldier can use a shield to deflect things, and the mage can conjure boxes or balls to help you climb on things. And overall, it was really fun. It's a gorgeous game. Like, the environments and everything are really, really pretty. Like, it's a 2D platformer, but there's so much depth to each of the environments and levels. I did find it overstayed its welcome a tiny bit. I think it was around 10 or so hours, maybe, or 12. I forget if we played it for 4 or 5 sessions. But, a little longer than I would have liked it, especially for a co-op game. And I did find by the end of the game, you had so many abilities, and then each of the at times 3 for 3 characters. So there was just like a lot to keep track of in terms of the controls. And I found that the mage character specifically, conjuring items was very annoying because you just had everyone conjuring things everywhere and just getting in the way. And if you jumped on something, you couldn't control it anymore. And that got kind of annoying. I really liked the other 2 characters, and especially the puzzles that involved them more than the mage. But overall, it was a decent game. I think it probably 4 is a little too many players for it. Like, I think it would probably be better with 3 or even 2 players, but 4 was a little bit on the chaotic side, especially by the end. But overall, it was still an enjoyable time, and we played it all the way through. Next is an adventure game that I played for Adventure Game Sundays over on Twitch, and it is Paradigm. This is an adventure game from, I believe it's around 2017, something like that. So, 5 or 6 years old. And it's a very silly, sort of like meta humor kind of game. You play this weird mutant who, at the beginning, you're at a nuclear plant and you're told that it's melting down and you need to figure out how to fix it. And then you just kind of get whisked away through time and space to go on a whole new adventure. It's very, very funny. I thought it was quite hilarious. If you like the sort of fourth wall breaking kind of meta humor, you'd probably like this, although I know some people got a little bit annoyed by it. But I thought it was really good. I thought the voice acting was great. The puzzles were good. Nothing was overly difficult, though there were some head scratchers at some point. I think the humor and the comedy in it were definitely the thing it had going for it the most. And another thing that was really cool was that it often switched up art styles. So the main game was a consistent art style, which was very nice, but then you play a game and it's sort of pixelated graphics, and then you play something else and the graphics look like way more high-tech than the rest of the game. Or even at the end of the game, there's alternate endings, and one of them is even just like FMV, just recordings of actual people. So it does a really good job in like switching between styles in a really cool way. So I really like Paradigm. If you like funny adventure games, then I would definitely recommend it. Another game I played was Venba. This just came on Game Pass sometime last month. It is a little indie game, it's very short. It tells the story of a couple who immigrate to Canada from India and just sort of their life as they do that. They quickly have a child, and the main gameplay is about cooking. So there's some, sort of visual graphic adventure kind of things where you have some conversation options, but mostly at certain time frames and certain events, you're going through your mother's cookbook and making these recipes, although there's sort of like things missing from the cookbook, so you have to fill in some blanks yourself. So you have to just sort of figure out how to cook these recipes in the right sequence of events. And I thought the cooking was really good, even though I was really bad at it to start. I failed a lot. I don't think this is supposed to be a difficult game, but it made me question if I even know how to cook at all, because I was doing so badly at the beginning. But once I got a hang of it, it was good. All the food looked delicious. It made me really hungry. I found that I don't really complain about games being too short too often, but I did feel like it could have used at least another hour. It was only an hour and a half for me to finish the game, just to get into the characters more. Like, I didn't feel like I had enough time to get them to know them or buy in. It just sort of skipped time sort of through their lives quite quickly in a way that didn't really allow me to connect with the characters. But it was nice, it was charming, the art looked good, the food mini games were pretty cute, and all the food looked delicious. I would say play it on Game Pass if you have that available to you and it sounds interesting. But yeah, it was alright, just could have been a little longer. A game that I started way back, I think maybe even last October, sort of when I was streaming spooky games during Halloween, is Lamentum. And this is a sort of classic survival horror, except it also works like a more of an adventure game. So it's like a kind of top-down view with pixelated graphics. You play a man whose wife has gotten very sick, and he goes to this mysterious mansion with this mysterious doctor who promises that he can fix her. And then things get really weird, and there's blood everywhere, and there's monsters, and you have to go through this mansion, finding out what's going on, trying to find out where your wife went. And it's pretty good. The atmosphere is really nice. It looks really good. The puzzles are fun. I did find that combat took some getting used to. Like, you do fight monsters a lot. A lot of the time you can run by them, but there is some combat that is necessary. Took some getting used to. For the most part, it was okay, although there were occasionally one-hit deaths. And since this isn't a game that uses checkpoints, it's a game where you have to actually save in a specific save room, that could definitely be annoying to have to just like die and go back and repeat things that you had already done. I wasn't a huge fan of that, but overall, I really liked the game. The story was nice. Well, it wasn't nice, it was kind of awful. But the story was good, the atmosphere was great, and it was generally just a fun game to play. So while I was at Retro World, I took advantage of the free play arcade to play a number of things. I hit up the Jurassic Park pinball table, which is generally the first one I'll take if, Elvira or anything isn't there. But that's fun. I'd love to get to the point where I actually can strategize in pinball and understand how a table works rather than just trying to not let the ball go in the hole, but I haven't even mastered that yet. So it's unlikely that I'm gonna be a master pinball player. But one thing that I beat was Armed Police Batrider, which is a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up, and it was a lot of fun. Something that made it stand out was that when you pick your ship, you're not actually picking one ship, you're picking a team of 3 players. And each one has a ship that works differently and has a different special attack or bomb. And as one person dies, you go on to the next ship, which is pretty cool. It was definitely difficult after the first few stages, but free play was on, so I could just take as long as I needed to beat the whole thing. And yeah, it was fun. It looked great. It controlled well. And that 3-ship thing was pretty neat. I also played through NARC with my friend Dylan. NARC is a game about busting drug dealers and drug takers. Found out that though most of what you do is just shoot people, you can also arrest them if you just sort of like walk over them for enough time, and they'll like put their hands up, and then you stay there and they'll be arrested instead of dead, which I guess is preferable. It's just sort of a scrolling kind of very early game. I think it's from the 80s. And yeah, you just go through different levels. There's some vehicle segments. You can shoot explosives, which is fun. It was a pretty okay game. Controls weren't great. Also, my stick was not completely responsive. But yeah, it was a fun one to play through co-op. Only took maybe half an hour to get through the whole game. And yeah, I've seen that game a lot, but this was the first time I actually had a chance to play it. The other thing I played, which I'm calling a beat even though we technically didn't get there, was House of the Dead 2. I love light gun games, and this was the only one they had there. The first day I tried to play and it just wouldn't start. I don't know if it wasn't on free play or something, but I just could not get the game to start. The second day went back and we were able to start it, so Michelle and I played through House of the Dead 2. It's just your typical zombie shooter. There is a story. The subtitles were all in Japanese, so I didn't know what was going on, but I basically gathered that you have to shoot the zombies, so that's what we did. It's a fun one. Some things are a little bullet spongy. I definitely found that my shoulders and my elbows really hurt from like holding the light gun up for, I don't know, 40 minutes or so. But it was a fun game. I love light gun games. Unfortunately, while we were midway through chapter 6, which is the final chapter of the game, it just completely froze. Just froze on us. We couldn't get it back working, so we had to give up right when we were at the end, which is upsetting, but I'm glad at least we got to play through most of the game while we were there. And the last thing, which I've put an absurd amount of time into since getting back from Retro World, it even made me put Baldur's Gate 3 on the back burner for a while, was Slay the Spire, which is a game I've played before. My history with it was strange because the first time I played it, I didn't really like it because I didn't like the Ironclad. Eventually, when I got to open up the Defect, I really liked it, so I played through the whole game and finished Act 3 on the Defect, and then was like, okay, that's it, I don't like the other characters. But I've sort of been playing it on and off. I take it with me on my Switch when I travel, if I have to like go on a plane or anything, because that's the only thing I really like playing in handheld mode. And then when I got back on my Xbox to my original game and started going through it again. So I went through and I beat Act 3 with the Ironclad. Then I beat Act 3 with the Silent. But one of the things with having 2 Xboxes, if you don't do things right, your saves won't transfer. So I beat it with the Silent on my Xbox in the living room. And then I went to play in the bedroom later on, and the progress was just gone. Like 2 of the unlocks I had gotten, gone. The fact that I had finished, gone. Couldn't open up the next segment of the game, which I had opened up by then. So then I had to dedicate more hours to getting a second beat with the Silent, which took me way longer than I would have liked it to. And then when I did that, I was like, all right, may as well just go for Act 4 now. So I went back to the Defect and eventually went and beat all of Act 4, which was really good. I got the final boss on my first try, which was great because it was difficult to get there. But I just had a deck that was just full of so much block. Every turn it was just like 50 block just from my ice orbs, which was amazing. I really love that character. But yeah, Slay the Spire was really good. It's just such an incredible time suck. Like a run is over an hour if you're doing well, and I was just sitting there just like keeping playing and playing and playing while like listening to podcasts or watching YouTube videos or something. So Very fun game, but I am happy to say I'm going to be uninstalling it and playing other things now. So yeah, Slay the Spire is fantastic. Just, you know, be prepared for its roguelite aspects to make you keep playing. Alright, that is it for this video. Leave me a comment, let me know if you were up to anything interesting in August, what you've been playing, if you got any cool pickups. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.